My name is Laura Clyburn. I'm 31 years old, and Thanksgiving has always been the one holiday that exposes every fracture in my family, like the day itself demands everyone pretend everything is perfect, just long enough for the truth to leak through the cracks. This year, though, felt cursed the minute I stepped through my Aunt Carla's door. It's strange, really. I don't hate my extended family, or maybe I do a little, but more than hate, it's that I've never fit the mold they worship. Those pristine holiday photos gossip about promotions, shiny luxury cars parked in the driveway like trophies. They all thrive on the performance of success. Me. I grew up the artsy one, the quiet one, the woman who didn't go straight to law school like my cousin Jenna or join her father's insurance firm like practically every man in the family. I took a gap year to backpack across Southeast Asia, which they still whisper about as if it were a crime. The black sheep, they call me. Sometimes kindly, usually not. My parents moved out of state 5 years ago, leaving me the lone representative of our branch at these gatherings. Without them, the holidays feel even more isolating, but I still go out of habit guilt, or maybe that hopeful sliver of me that thinks maybe this year they'll finally see me, the real me, not the failure version they keep rewriting. Aunt Carla's house was its usual brand of suburban perfection. A seasonal wreath, cinnamon candles, and a fireplace playing one of those looped crackling videos from YouTube. I arrived on time holding a bottle of wine that I already knew no one would drink because it wasn't from their favored overpriced Napa labels. I barely crossed the threshold before Uncle Rick's voice slapped me across the room. "Well, look who decided to show up," he smirked over the rim of his second scotch. Didn't know unemployed people had such busy schedules. It stung. It always stings. But I learned long ago how to keep my face still, like a sheet of ice that won't crack even if the water underneath is boiling. I smiled politely, nodded, and walked toward the living room, where the usual pre-dinner chaos buzzed. Kids in itchy sweaters, women swapping pumpkin pie secrets, men clinking glasses while debating stock tips like they were trading on Wall Street. Same script every year. And then Jenna arrived. Jenna, my cousin, my lifelong rival. Not because I wanted it, but because she insisted on it. Same age as me, same high school, same yearbook poll. I was voted most likely to succeed. She was most likely to marry rich. She pretended it was funny. It wasn't. Designer coat, dramatic laugh, perfectly curated presence. Jenna has always been obsessed with status, and she wears it like armor. Today, she strutted in with a man I'd never seen before. Tall, sharp jawline, a face that looked like it belonged in a magazine ad. "This is Michael," she announced, her smile stretched too wide. "My fiancé." A chorus of congratulations followed. Aunt Carla teared up instantly. Uncle Rick clapped Michael's back like he'd personally rescued a kitten from a burning building. The women swarmed Jenna like lacquered vultures demanding proposal details. Michael, looking mildly overwhelmed, scanned the room and spotted me standing near the piano. He approached with an outstretched hand. "Hey, I'm Michael," Laura, I replied. He smiled. "Jenna says you two were really close growing up." I raised an eyebrow. "Did she?" He chuckled nervously. "I guess now's a good time to meet everyone. You live around here." "Not really. I travel a lot for work." Before he could ask more, Jenna materialized beside him, her voice sharpened to carry across the room. "Laura's being modest." She leaned into him. "Let's just say she peaked in high school." Laughter rippled, light, familiar, dismissive. Uncle Rick chimed in. "She's basically floating around doing... what is it again? YouTube coding TikToks." I kept my face neutral. I didn't defend myself. I learned long ago, there's no winning against a narrative people enjoy believing. What no one understood was that silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. What I didn't expect was Michael's reaction. He didn't laugh. Instead, he glanced down, slid his phone under the table, and typed something into Google. I saw my name reflected in the screen's glow. Then I saw his expression shift. His smile faltered. His brows twitched, just slightly. He looked back at me, not like Jenna's pathetic cousin, but like a puzzle piece he wasn't supposed to find. He excused himself moments later, heading to the kitchen with a pale, unreadable face. Dinner was called soon after. I took my usual spot, the far end near the drafty window and the kitchen door. The overflow seat, the place for people who don't matter. Across from me sat Jenna and Michael, flanked by Uncle Rick and Aunt Carla, already buzzing from holiday cocktails. Halfway through dinner, Aunt Carla gave me her realtor's smile. "So, Laura, sweetie, any new projects you're dabbling in?" "A few," I nodded. "I just wrapped..." "She makes TikToks," Jenna cut in, rolling her eyes. Michael cleared his throat. "Actually, She peaked in high school, Jenna repeated louder. Remember that trophy shelf in her parents' basement? What happened to that? I donated them, I said calmly. You even gave away the debate champion trophy, she gasped theatrically. You used to polish that thing like it was your child. I was 17, I replied. People grow up. Uncle Rick laughed. Yeah, but not always in the right direction. I stayed quiet. I refused to give them a show. Then came the moment that cracked something deep inside me. Halfway through dessert, some overpriced cranberry cheesecake Jenna insisted everyone taste, Uncle Rick clinked his glass. As you all know, he announced I've been grooming someone to take over my side of the business. He paused dramatically. And I've decided there's no better candidate than this fine young man right here. He lifted his glass toward Michael. Applause erupted. Aunt Carla dabbed her eyes. Jenna beamed like she'd won an Olympic medal. Michael looked stunned. I sat frozen. Years ago, Rick had asked me to help fix a technical mess one of his clients faced. I solved it in a weekend. He offered me a part-time role. I declined. I had my own business to build. But now giving everything to Jenna's fiancé, that wasn't business. It was a message. A final stamp on the label they'd glued to me. Laura doesn't belong in this family's success stories. Michael glanced at me again, this time with guilt. Laura, he said quietly, we should talk after. Don't drag her into work stuff, Jenna snapped, laughing. She's off the grid, remember. I gripped my glass, heat flooding my face, not rage, but clarity. I wasn't the family joke. I was their blind spot. I stayed silent, but something inside me shifted quiet seismic. Dinner ended. I left without another word. Because the truth was simple. Michael wasn't the only one who could Google. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry. Anger burns fast. This was something colder, steadier, more precise. A realization that had been waiting years for the right moment to surface. All it took was one Thanksgiving dinner for everything to finally click into place. When I got home, I sat on the edge of my bed with my jacket still on my phone, buzzing relentlessly in my pocket with the usual group chat photos staged, smiles clinking glasses, Jenna flaunting her ring in every angle possible. I didn't open a single one. Instead, I turned on my laptop. My company dashboard blinked awake, a quiet reminder of the life I had built outside of their dismissive little bubble. Revenue charts, client lists, product metrics, user growth graphs that curved upward in clean, beautiful lines. A decade of work, a decade of silence. It wasn't shame that kept me quiet. It was exhaustion. I had grown tired of explaining myself to people uninterested in listening. Let them assume whatever narrative made them feel superior. Let them laugh. Let them think I had disappeared into irrelevance. But Thanksgiving changed something inside me. Their laughter didn't sting because I cared about their approval. It stung because I'd allowed their version of me to be the only one anyone saw. I clicked to my website, my company's landing page. Clean black and white interface. Minimalistic design. A list of clients whose names could shut up every snide comment at that dinner table. But no one in my family ever bothered to look. I scrolled to the About page. My face. My credentials. A short, unflashy summary of the products I had built and sold. A decade condensed into 4 neat paragraphs. For years I kept a low profile on purpose. Now I realized low profile had turned into erasure. I closed the laptop and whispered into the dark, not anymore. By morning, the decision had crystallized. I made coffee black, bitter grounding, and opened my laptop again. First task, a message to an old acquaintance. Riley, a branding consultant I met at a tech conference years back. Someone sharp, subtle, and very good at turning quiet talent into undeniable presence. We hopped on a call by noon. I need visibility, I said simply. Riley leaned back in her chair, smirking. You've been hiding long enough. For the next 3 weeks, we rebuilt everything from the ground up. A redesigned website, updated portfolio, case studies laid out with clean graphics and actual numbers, a personal brand that didn't scream for attention but commanded it. Then came the big move. I finally updated my LinkedIn profile for the first time in 4 years. My inbox caught fire within hours. Former colleagues, startup founders, recruiters from companies that had ignored me years ago. A few VC scouts sniffing around with just curious where your journey is headed messages. I ignored most of them, not out of spite, out of clarity. I wasn't chasing validation. I was reclaiming the narrative. Next came the community work. A friend of mine, Danielle, ran a nonprofit that helped underrepresented teenagers learn coding basics. I asked if he needed volunteers. He handed me an entire Saturday program. 2 weeks later, I was teaching a room full of nervous high schoolers how to build their first app. Their curiosity, their excitement, it stirred something warm in me. For the first time in years, I felt visible, not to others, but to myself. December arrived with a burst of energy. While everything else in the world slowed down for the holidays, I sped up. I launched the beta for a product I'd been tinkering with in the quiet hours Loop Circle, a platform helping small creators monetize niche communities without relying on endless sponsorships. Soft launch, no ads, no press. Within a month, 2,000 users. In February, a popular Substack writer mentioned Loop Circle in a newsletter, calling it shockingly intuitive and quietly revolutionary. The waiting list doubled in a week. By March, a mid-sized VC firm emailed me with the subject line, "Let's talk." I stared at the message for a long moment before typing 2 words. Not interested. It felt better than any applause imaginable. But the universe wasn't done. One late March afternoon, my phone buzzed. Jenna. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity, the same thing that kept me attending family holidays, nudged me. "Hey," I said. "Do you know someone named Robert Tillman?" she asked. Her voice was small, shaky. "Yes," I replied slowly. "He runs a marketing analytics startup. I optimized their back end last year." There was a pause on her end, a breath, a swallow. "Well, Michael just had an interview with him." I waited. "And Robert asked if he was related to you." She swallowed again. "He said something about trying to hire you as a CTO, that you turned him down." Her silence wasn't empty. It was cracking. "I didn't know," Jenna whispered. "Why didn't you ever tell us?" My answer came out calm, steady. "I tried," I said. "You just weren't listening." She didn't argue. For the first time in our lives, she didn't have a comeback. A few days later, Michael emailed me with the subject line, "Apologies and coffee." He didn't owe me one, but he offered it anyway, saying he admired what I built and regretted how things unfolded. I replied with a polite note, "No hard feelings, no coffee." Time moved forward, pulling Easter with it. When I walked into Aunt Carla's house that morning, the energy had shifted. Not hostility, uncertainty, the kind that fills a room when people realize the person they dismissed isn't standing where they expected her to. Michael greeted me first, sincere. Jenna hovered behind him like a shadow with fading edges. "Loop Circle looks amazing," he said. I nodded politely. "Thank you." Conversation drifted. The brunch passed without fireworks. No insults, no jabs. But beneath the calm was tension, a collective awareness that something had changed. I could have let it go there. But Thanksgiving hadn't just bruised my pride. It had awakened a truth. People don't learn unless they feel the consequences. So I began laying the quiet groundwork for the next phase. It started with an old friend from a fintech startup, Kayla now running her own design agency, and dating a tech journalist named Liam. I casually mentioned Loop Circle during a catch-up call. "Your story would make an incredible piece," Kayla said. Quiet success. The underdog who actually won. 3 days later, I was speaking with Liam. We talked for 2 interviews about building in silence, about resilience, about the loneliness of being dismissed. I never mentioned my family. He connected the dots himself. A week later, the article dropped. The Woman Who Peaked After High School, How Laura Clyburn Quietly Built a Multi-million-dollar Platform, while her family laughed. I didn't write the headline, but I didn't hate it. It went semi-viral on LinkedIn, shared by influencers, reposted by a few startups mentioned in a marketing blog. Within 24 hours, Jenna texted me, "So you were traveling for work?" I stared at it, then typed, "I still am." 2 days later, Michael messaged me again. "Read the article, I think I really messed up." I didn't respond. I was already planning the next move, the reunion. June, the annual family barbecue extravaganza. This year, I would not attend alone. I'd skipped the family's annual summer barbecue for years. It was always the same matching t-shirts, overcooked burgers, and a predictable hierarchy of who mattered and who didn't. I usually fell into the latter category. But this year, I RSVP yes with a +1. Not because I wanted to make a spectacle. Spectacles were Jenna's sport, not mine. I was coming for clarity. To watch quietly as the truth rearranged the family ecosystem. My +1 was Ava, my COO. Brilliant, composed, strategic. The kind of woman who could walk into any room and without saying a word, make everyone sit up straighter. We weren't dating, but we carried a natural chemistry and ease that felt like confidence rather than performance. When I told her what the barbecue was, she asked only one question. "What version of yourself do you want them to see?" "The real one," I said. "Finally." She nodded. "Then I'll follow your lead." On the afternoon of the event, Ava arrived in a black jumpsuit, sleek, elegant, effortlessly powerful. The kind of outfit that said, "I don't need your approval. I brought chips, a minimalistic tote, and an internal steadiness I'd never taken with me to a family gathering before. As we walked up the driveway, I saw it the startled double take, the sudden hush in conversations, the subtle lift of eyebrows. Ava smiled politely. I kept my posture relaxed, letting silence do the work. Jenna reached us first. Laura, wow, you actually came this year. I could hear the strain in her voice. She was trying to sound casual, but her eyes darted to Ava with thinly veiled suspicion. Figured it was time I said, sipping my iced tea. Jenna's smile tightened. And who's this? Ava, she replied, extending a hand. COO at Loop Circle. Jenna blinked. Once. Twice? Oh, cool, fancy. Ava's smile stayed immaculate. He's hard to keep up with, she said lightly. But I manage. Jenna's jaw twitched. Right. Well, great to finally meet the brains behind everything. Oh no, Ava said, unbothered. Laura's the brains. I'm just here to make sure no one wastes her time. It was a dagger, polished, polite, professionally lethal. Jenna's smile cracked like thin ice. Michael approached, then his footsteps slower than usual, his expression something like regret mixed with relief. Your panel last week, he began. I turned to him. Yes, it was incredible. I took so many notes. Honestly, thank you. Glad it helped, I said. He hesitated, then added, I didn't realize who you were back in November. I wish I had said something. You did, I said gently, just not out loud. He exhaled. Fair. Behind him, Jenna stiffened. Their dynamic had shifted. Michael looked at me with respect Jenna had never offered anyone but herself, and for the first time she knew it. I moved through the party quietly, letting questions come to me instead of chasing them. Cousins approached with cautious curiosity. Aunts asked about my business thing in overly sweet tones. Even the men who once dismissed me with a single glance now asked careful questions about products and teams and growth. The power shift wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Eventually, even Uncle Rick wandered over, carrying a plate of ribs like a peace offering. Didn't know you were still in tech, he said in a rigidly polite tone. I never left, I replied. He coughed. Michael mentioned something about a creator platform. Loop Circle, I said. We just hit our 10,000 user mark. He blinked. Sounds interesting. You should look into it, I said. Your firm has clients who might benefit. He nodded slowly, but he wouldn't, because he already understood exactly what clients who might benefit meant. That his world was suddenly sharply outdated. That his influence wasn't untouchable. And that the cousin he'd mocked for TikToks and vibes was building tools he didn't even understand enough to dismiss. But the next step had nothing to do with revenge. Not directly. A few weeks after the barbecue, I signed the contract. Loop Circle would provide a full-scale integration for Westlake Partners, one of Uncle Rick's biggest and oldest clients. They approached me after discovering the article. They wanted efficiency, innovation, modern systems. Everything his firm no longer offered. I didn't advertise the deal. I didn't flaunt it. But the moment Jenna found out, my phone lit up with her name. I let it ring, then answered. You're working with Westlake, she demanded, voice sharp, brittle. Yes, you knew they were one of Rick's biggest accounts. I did. You didn't tell him. I paused, a long quiet pause. Did he ever ask what I actually do? I said. Silence hovered between us like a verdict. Then she spoke more softly. This is going to hit him hard, Laura. Funny, I said. He didn't seem too concerned when he told Michael I was basically unemployed. She inhaled shakily. For the first time, I heard fear instead of arrogance. You're not the same anymore. I am. My voice stayed even. You just never looked closely. She hung up, and I knew the shift was complete. But the final piece hadn't fallen yet. That came 2 weeks later when Westlake sent their standard transition notifications, informing every vendor, including Rick's firm, that they were moving their infrastructure to a new platform. To my platform. That afternoon, my office door opened. Ava looked up. Her expression tightened. Rick Clyburn is here, she said. He wants to see you. I stood. Let him wait. Her jaw softened into a smirk. 5 minutes. 10, I corrected. He's earned it. When I finally walked into the conference room, Rick was sitting stiffly, a manila folder clenched in his hands like a lifeline. You've built quite the operation, he said, forcing a smile. Thank you. He shifted. Look, about Westlake. We've had that partnership for nearly a decade. This transition, it's disruptive. To us. To our people. We've had a family relationship with them. Relationships matter, I agreed, sitting across from him. That's right, he said, leaning forward. So I'm asking, can we work something out? You don't have to replace us. I slid something across the table. Not legal documents, not contracts. A printed copy of the article. He stared at the headline. His jaw tightened. His hands trembled once. You made sure everyone saw me as a joke, I said quietly. Every holiday, every year. That's not. It is, I said, cutting him off. Calm, controlled, precise. You all wrote a version of me that was easier to mock than understand. And you believed your version so deeply that the truth became irrelevant. He swallowed hard. Westlake needed modern systems, I continued. The transition wasn't personal. He looked at the article again. It feels personal. For you, I said softly. For me, it's closure. He didn't speak again. He only stood, gathered his things, and left. That was the day everything changed. The dominoes fell quickly after that. 2 more clients left Rick's firm citing outdated practices. Another requested an audit and discovered major inefficiencies. His team shrank month by month. By October, the firm quietly filed for reorganization. Jenna never contacted me again. Michael did once. A simple message on LinkedIn. I'm doing better now. Thank you. Aunt Carla started calling again, warm and curious, suddenly proud of the cousin she once dismissed like background noise. I answered her politely. But I didn't go back for holiday dinners. Because this story was never about revenge. It was about history, who gets to tell it, who gets to define it, and how easy it is for people to mistake silence for weakness. I walked away knowing one thing. I hadn't destroyed anything. I'd simply stopped letting them destroy me. In the quiet that followed the collapse of Rick's firm, something unexpected settled over my life, a strange, steady stillness. Not triumph, not gloating, something softer. A sense of being unburdened, finally freed from a weight I didn't realize I'd carried since childhood. The weight of being misunderstood, of being underestimated, of being rewritten by people who had never once bothered to read me properly. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post anything online. I didn't call anyone to share the news. I simply went on with my work. By November, Loop Circle had grown to a team of 12. We'd just signed our 5th major creator community. Our revenue projection for the quarter was stronger than expected. My days were busy, full, rewarding, the kind of life younger me used to dream about while sitting through holiday dinners, pretending to enjoy pumpkin pie. One cold morning, as I walked into the office, Ava glanced up from her laptop. You look lighter, she said. Should I not? I asked with a small laugh. You should, she replied. Sometimes winning doesn't look like fireworks. Sometimes it's just quiet. Quiet. That word again. The one people once used as an insult, a label, a dismissal. Now it felt like the truest, sharpest definition of me, quiet, steady, deliberate. I spent the next few months immersed in work. We launched new features, onboarded more users, negotiated new partnerships. I spoke at 2 virtual conferences, mentored 3 more student groups, reconnected with old colleagues, built new friendships. Life moved forward. But families never stay quiet for long. In early December, as I sat outside a cafe waiting for my coffee, my phone buzzed. Mom, your aunt wants you to come to Christmas dinner this year. I stared at the message, breath fogged in the cold air. People walked past with shopping bags and knitted hats. Everything felt strangely distant. I had skipped every family gathering since the summer, not out of bitterness, out of self-preservation. My life felt calmer when I wasn't forced into rooms where I had to shrink myself to survive. I didn't respond right away. Another message came a minute later. Mom, I think they're finally ready to talk to you. Really talk. That made me pause. Not because I believed it, but because I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear them. I typed back, I'll think about it. For the next week, the invitation sat in my mind like an unopened letter. I kept replaying memories, some dull. With time, others still sharp enough to sting. The feeling of sitting at the far end of every table, being turned into a character in their scripted stories, having my silence mistaken for emptiness. Then I remembered something my mentor Daniel once said. Closure isn't an apology, it's choosing not to need one. Christmas Eve arrived with a sky full of quiet snowfall. I sat in my apartment with a cup of tea watching flakes drift past the window. I thought about the article, the barbecue, the meeting with Rick, the years of being underestimated, the months of finally stepping into my own life without feeling like an intruder. And suddenly the answer felt obvious. I didn't need to go back. I didn't need their acknowledgement. I didn't need to prove anything anymore. I typed a short message to my mother. I'm spending the holiday at home this year, but tell them I wish them well. She didn't argue. She only wrote, I'm proud of you. It was the first time she'd ever said it. January rolled in with cold winds and endless work. Ava and I traveled to New York for a week of meetings. We landed our biggest partnership yet, an education platform wanting to host all their micro-communities through Loop Circle. It was a deal that could double our user base and triple our reach. One night, after a long day of negotiations, Ava and I sat in a quiet hotel lounge, sharing a late dinner. You know, she said, swirling her fork in her pasta, your story is going to follow you. What story? I asked. The one everyone loves, the quiet builder, the underestimated woman who outgrew the small box her family tried to keep her in. I shook my head. I didn't do this for the story. I know, she said softly. That's why it's so compelling. I didn't respond. Instead, I watched the city lights flicker outside the window. A city full of noise and ambition. A city that never cared who I used to be, only who I was now. In February, I received a message I didn't expect. Michael, hope you're well. I know things went differently than any of us expected. I just wanted to say thank you for being the only honest person in the room back then. I'm doing better, and I hope you are too. I wrote back. You don't owe me anything, but thank you. I'm glad you're okay. It wasn't closure. It was something gentler. A small unknotted thread. Spring came. Our user base passed 20,000. We hired 3 more engineers. A journalist reached out asking if I'd be willing to do a podcast interview about building resilience. I agreed. Not because I wanted attention, but because I finally understood something. Silence is powerful, but only when it's chosen. Not when it's forced. Not when it's shaped by the people who never saw you. Not when it's used as a weapon against yourself. My silence now was different. It wasn't hiding. It was focus, direction, self-respect. Months later in April, I received one last unexpected message. Aunt Carla, we miss you, and we're sorry if we ever made you feel small. If you ever want to come back, the door is open. I stared at the message for a long time. I didn't feel anger, or triumph, or vindication. Just distance, like I had finally stepped off a stage I never auditioned for. I typed a simple reply. Thank you, I wish you all the best, truly. I didn't add anything else, because this wasn't a story about returning, or revenge, or rewriting them. It was about rewriting me. The version of myself I had neglected, the narrative I had allowed others to hijack for too long. I closed my phone, closed my eyes, and breathed. They were free to tell the story however they wanted. But I knew the truth. I'd always known it. I just finally stopped whispering it.